Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kit Cave. A very happy new year to everybody. I hope your festivities last night were very enjoyable. I hope you all had a very nice time. Here we are, 1st of January 2023. So back with you again, just as a little quick update to this current work in progress. This is the 1/6 scale. What's going to be the fully articulated figurine of Gates McFadden, aka Dr. Beverly Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation. So some of you may spot here that I'm not, well, two things really. First of all, I've actually figured out how to record direct from the computer screen. Hooray! So no more very dodgy, very poor quality, or visually no poor quality videos. So I do apologise for that last video I updated. It was doing it on my phone. Between then and yesterday, actually, I'd learned how to do this screen recording, so we can see a little bit better. So that's the first thing. I've now been officially dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century with modern day technology. However, so the quick update here is I just wanted to go through and show you part of the process now that I tend to use when doing these models. If I just try to pan around, now bear with me, my computer is running a little bit slow, being a little bit laggy today, and that's really because of the mesh here. Here we go. So what I was working on the other day was all I had left to do was the ears, which are now done and in place. You can see here I've sculpted in the details of the ears here for the character model. Again, I was using reference images of Gates McFadden herself because I wanted to try and get these ears as accurately to a true likeness as I possibly could. So they are now done and in place. This head sculpt, then I did a little bit more work, just a tiny bit on the eyebrows here as well, just to define them a little bit more. But not too much. Obviously, at the scale that this is going to be, you're not going to see it all that much once it's printed. So I'm at the stage where I'm happy. I'm happy with the sculpt. Okay, it's okay. I'm not going to say it's 100% dead accurate to Gates McFadden herself, but it's a pretty good, close, reasonable facsimile of looking at her here. And so I've kind of reached the stage with the sculpt as I'm happy. It looks pretty much like a good rendition of Dr. Beverly Crusher, aka Gates McFadden. I'm not going to start messing around with it anymore, because the more I keep going into it, the more I try to get it, an absolute dead ringer true likeness, I'll just end up messing it up, which is what I don't want to do. So part of the process now, this part of the project is I'm getting ready for, essentially, so it can be 3D printed. Okay, I've still got to work on the headpiece here, so this will be done back in Blender to get the actual the barbell joint situated in here before I move on to the body. But before that, it's what I call now the cleanup stage, to the mesh itself. Now, part of the reason why this has been a bit buggy, a bit laggy, is you can probably notice down here in Mesh Mixture, it's giving us here my vertice count and my triangles, right? And you can see it's a very high poly mesh that was created in Blender to get these details in. Now, of course, those of us that use Blender will know that once you get to a stage where you've got a very high poly count mesh, it starts to create problems. Blender becomes unresponsive. The power of my computer is not strong enough to process massive amounts, as probably a lot of our computers are like that. And so this is a necessary stage now, whereas I'm using Mesh Mixer to reduce the geometry of this particular head. Now, I'm not going to get into the argument of doing the whole manual retopology thing. I've watched lots of videos on YouTube. Manual retopology of meshes like this is good. I'm never going to say it's not, to clean up geometry, so you got nice edge flows. It can reduce the poly count. But what I've noticed from the videos that I've been watching and researching, and I will teach myself and learn how to do manual retopology later on down the line, is that I've noticed more so a lot of videos are geared up, and a lot of people and it's good information, good advice, don't get me wrong, but it's geared up towards people that are creating models and meshes for doing things like rigging and animation and characters for video games. And so manual retopology to reduce the mesh, have good edge flow, good topology, is a necessary step in that process. Now for physical 3D printing, I've kind of figured out by trial and error a bit that manual retopology is not entirely that necessary for this stage. Reducing the poly count definitely, because that just helps with performance in the computer, and it helps with a second stage cleanup process back in Blender, but is not entirely critical to do manual retopology, I've found personally. That's my personal opinion at this stage. So that's why we're here in Mesh Mixer. So obviously I've exported this head sculpt from Blender, imported it here into Mesh Mixer, and the tool that I'm going to be using now to reduce the amount of triangles here, because when we export everything it naturally gets converted to triangles anyway, and to reduce the actual geometry so that we can get it back into Blender and continue to work with it and reduce it down, is I'm going to be using this tool up here. So in Mesh Mixer, I've got this set up, symmetry is on. If we come up to the brush menu, it's these two brushes down here, the reduce and the adaptive reduce brushes. That is what I'm going to do. And what this will do, as you go through, you can run, if you've never used this before, some of you may have, you can run your brush over like this and it'll automatically start to decimate the geometry, okay, and it'll start to reduce the amount of triangles and vertices that you've got here. Now again, yes, you can probably do this in Blender. You know, I did do a remesh of this before I exported it out. You can use the decimate feature in Blender as well, which is what I did just before I did a remesh to this model. But I do like to use this. It's a nice user-friendly way to do it a little bit more. So you won't see much happening at this stage by looking at it in this view. But if we toggle our view setting and go to wireframe, we can see what's going on a little bit better. And there we go. So you can see straight away just how dense this model is. Okay, it's very blacked out. Now I don't know why it's doing this with the shading, but it's a very, very dense mesh, and this needs to be reduced. Okay, you can see if I move it in here, very, very dense. So let's start and reduce this down. So my process quite simply is I've got the strengths of this, got the strength set of this brush set at 50. I'll just move that down. What am I into the reduce brush? I'm going to move that down. Again, apologies, it's a bit laggy, to about 40. There we go. Now I'm just going to start with the back of the head. Again, you can reduce the back of the head here, the geometry down quite a bit, because it doesn't have to be that detailed as long as it prints okay, because it's going to be covered. And there you go, you can see what's going on now. And what this is doing, this is reducing and decimating, I should say, all these faces, all these triangles, all these vertices. And it's going to start as we go through, and it's been a bit slow. It will get quicker as the count comes down. So just by doing that bit, we can see down here in the bottom right hand corner, bang, that changed there. It's just reduced the geometry. And that's pretty much it. That's all I'm going to keep doing. Now, it's quite high, so I'm going to keep going at this stage. I might turn it down a little bit. I'm in wireframe. What I attempt to do as part of this process, I will flick between views. I will switch between the wireframe view. And my computer's slowing up, so again, apologies for that. But again, it's trying to compute and calculate the changes that I'm making here. Go back up to view, switch off wireframe, go back into your standard mode. I can just keep going over. And the benefit of doing this is that you can see, as you run the brush over, what changes, if any, it's starting to make visually. When I get around to the ears and the face, when I rotate round here, I will reduce this strength down to about 3 or 4 and then go over. And what that'll do, that'll again start to reduce the topology, the geography of this mesh. It'll reduce the vertices and the face counts that we have, but it'll start, it'll maintain the actual detail to a certain degree. And then what I'll steadily do, I'll keep going over and over the model and increase the strength by a factor of 1 or 2 points and go over the same bit for the face and try to reduce this down as much as I can on the vertices and the triangles, the faces, until I'm happy that it's reduced down enough where I can port it back into Blender and it'll run smoothly and I can carry on working on it, but it'll retain the features, retain the detail. And that's it. That's all I'm doing. You can see the computer's starting to run a little bit better, and I'm just moving the cursor over and just reducing this topology down. Okay, I'm going to go back into wireframe here. I'm just working on the top and the back and the side of the head where there isn't that much detail needed. I'll flick back. There we go. Again, I'll rotate round a little bit. Come up to the top here, and this is the beauty thing here about having this symmetry turned on. I can just carry on doing this kind of fashion when it works. And it's still running a bit slow. There we go. It will be a bit laggy to begin with because it's trying to process quite a bit of information here. Reduce that down, get that line down. There we go. Now we can already see here as it starts to reduce this topology, reduce the geometry. Come on, Steve, the geometry itself. A lot of people would look at this and say, "Whoa, hang on a minute! Whoa, this isn't clean. This isn't, this isn't clean topology." To be perfectly honest, it doesn't have to be that clean because this model is going to be 3D printed. I don't have to worry about edge flow here. It's not going to be rigged for animation. It doesn't have to be that clean. As long as it prints fine. I have already done this once and tested it out before I started the recording on this video. Don't get me wrong, having clean topology, doing stuff in quads and having all of your lines all running in symmetry and all that kind of thing is great. I'm not going to say it's not, but personally I don't feel as though it is a massive vital step at this stage in the modelling process. I just want to get this geometry reduced down enough so that I can carry on working with it in Blender. And I will teach myself how to do manual retopology later on down the line when I get a little bit more experience at doing this sort of thing. But for now, that's all I'm really going to carry on doing. So I've kind of got the back of the head reduced down a bit. I'm going to come down here, reduce this down. I'm going to turn down the strength now just a little bit because I want this to be a little bit more, go down to about 28. I don't want to lose too much detail here. All the underside here, this can be again reduced down a bit more. Don't need this to be quite so dense, because all that's going to happen in here when I get this back into Blender, this is where I'm going to be doing the Boolean operations. I'm going to modify the head just a little bit to get it ready to connect to the neck piece when I model that part of the body. And so this doesn't need to be quite this dense, and so let's reduce it more down. Let's get this vertex and face count down as much as possible while not affecting too much. And under here again, my computer's being a bit laggy, but it is trying to process quite a lot at this stage. We'll come down here, underneath here, go up here. It does help when it stops being quite so laggy. You can get a little bit more finer results, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. And this is it. This is my process. This is what I just keep doing. And I'm just going to keep going. A little bit under here, I think. Can be reduced down, not too much. There we go. That's looking okay. Bit rough, but that's okay. So let's turn off wireframe. There we go. So you can see here how much it's reduced down, but that's okay. Again, this doesn't have to be massively detailed. Now at this stage, this is where I'm probably now going to start to focus on the main detailed elements. And this is where I'm going to reduce the strength now. And I'm going to go down to, let's go down to strength of this brush to a 4. Now I'm going to keep it in this view mode now, and this is where I'm just going to start to go over. I might just increase the size just a little bit. There we go, 59, that'll do. And I'm now going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go over. Spin this round a bit, and now I'm just going to go on over with this brush. You can see it is doing something. When I take my finger off the mouse key, it will adapt and change, but I can see the strength wise I carry on doing this, how much detail I might potentially lose. And at this strength it shouldn't be that much. If I do that, bring that over, take my finger off, let's look at the calculation down in the bottom left hand corner. It's thinking about it, it's thinking about it, it's thinking about it. It's processing, there we go. And now it's just reduced, and you can see there with that little reduction in the vertices and the triangle count down here, it did reduce it down, but I didn't lose that much detail. Maybe a little bit on the eyebrows there, but again, I'm not that concerned with that because they're going to get painted in anyway. So this is what I'm just going to carry on doing. So I'm going to keep going with this model for now, just reducing it down, reducing this geometry down as much as I can without sacrificing too much detail in the actual face itself and the details that I've worked hard on over the last few weeks to put into place. See what I can do to get this down. There we go, that worked. And then the next stage in this process will be this model will be then exported out of Mesh Mixer as an OBJ. It'll then be exported back into Blender, so I can carry on working and do what I call the next stage of the cleanup process, which is in Blender. That's using the 3D print toolbox to check the mesh for mesh errors, because there will be some. It's a natural thing that happens when we sculpt. There will be mesh errors, there'll be some intersecting faces that's going on. It could be registering some thin faces or non-flat faces or non-manifold edge or something like that. And so it's using the 3D print toolbox to go in and manually fix those errors in the mesh. And that's pretty much it. This head will be then ready for the next stage of having the neck joint put into it. And essentially it's going to be ready for 3D printing. I will slice it, so it'll be done in two halves, so you obviously can join them together with the joint piece, but it'll be good to go. So let's just carry on and go with this one. That's the next stage. Once that's all done, once the neck piece is sorted out, as I said, this particular part of the sculpt will be done and ready. I might even print it out just to test it. Why not? See how it comes out, and then it'll be on to the rest of the build here. Excuse me, which would be actually sculpting the main body, and then of course preparing the body for all the articulation and getting the joints inserted in there, and figuring out the best way to do that, as I did with the Grover model. And there we have it, everybody. I'm going to carry on with this, keep going. So you can see I've been reducing this down. Just lastly, before I finish, let's just go back to wireframe. So you can see there, it's reduced it down a bit. Again, it's still quite high, high count, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep going over a little bit more. See what I can reduce down. I'm going to keep going. Again, back into Blender. I'm not too concerned whether this whole face bit round here is going to be quite high. We've reduced it quite a bit here in the back. It has dropped down here the triangles and the vertices quite a bit, which is the benefit of using this tool in Mesh Mixer to do so, to clean this up a little bit and just make it a bit more user friendly when we're back into Blender, and stop all of the program becoming unresponsive because it's trying to process so much. I'll just keep doing that. And there we have it. Thanks for watching, everybody. A little quick process video of what I like to do when we get these sculpts at certain stages. I'm going to carry on a little bit longer with this, trying to reducing down as much as I can without sacrificing too much detail. But again, it's the little bits of detail that I can always add back into Blender once I port this back in a little while. And there we are. A nice little feature to use here to reduce this geometry. And again, you can, as I said, the mesh isn't clean. It's not clean topology. There's not good edge flow, but it's a model that's going to be 3D printed. It's not that necessary. somebody is going to probably disagree with me on that. You're more than happy to do so. As I said, I'm not going to get into that discussion or argument today. Anyway, there we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you all have a very great day and enjoy the new year. I'll be back with you again over the coming days and weeks with some more update videos with this sculpt as it's going on. You take care, everybody. Bye bye.